that kind of day.
So,
Right.
Well, Ed, let's, do you wanna take care of the fire department real quick?
Sure.
Okay, let's, go ahead.
Okay, just quickly, before you, the fire department, everybody's got what I call the pre-adopted budget. It is not a technical term that's typically used. I manufactured it this year just to differentiate from all the.
So we don't pick up the wrong page.
That's right, that's right. Otherwise, you'll pick up the tentative and it'll look completely different and we'll be on a different page. All right, we're gonna go through all the changes that I made. But first, we'll let the fire department, make the case for some of the concerns that they have on, what happened with the tentative. So, Chief?
I'm gonna.
No, I mean, I
I
kind of thought, when we were here last time, there was no real discussion on what was being cut, so, I mean, the way I learned this was looking online and looking at the budget, so, I'm gonna tell you, we came in lean, and that's what I've always done. I don't wanna, have to start coming in with a budget that's well over to give you something to cut.
That's not what made the cut.
No, but-
We just didn't cut for the sake of cutting,
I understand that predicament, but we also had the discussion, and I think the treasurer backed us up on that, what you pay per capita for fire protection here is an extreme bargain. I mean, you're not gonna find that anywhere else.
Basically, we made
and-
cuts in all areas. You guys coming in here tonight, no one else is coming back. You're the only group coming back. So, what we're looking for is you just to, it's not that we don't believe everything you asked for was justified, but because of last year's fire, and I know it was different, where you didn't spend the majority of it, and we are now because we're doing the car. Car was not in the budget. That was not part of what you were being budgeted for. The only reason why you're spending it all is because you're getting a car.
Well, we're
So,
not even,
and I know it's a different group, and I know that things are different. That's why we said, come back in. We're not closed off, budget's open still. So we just need you to be, and I know you guys do a hardcore, you spend a lot of time like we do preparing the budget. But we need you to be as specific as possible of what we cut and push the issue.
Well, I don't even know what you cut. The only reason I know there was cuts is because I looked
Charlie Gold
into
cuts.
the.
Yeah, it was just a dollar amount
Right.
taken out of, it was 4,000 out of equipment, 8,000 out of contractual.
What we did was shift money, we actually didn't take any money out
Took it in reserve.
per se. We put it, we took out 4,000 in
Equipment.
equipment and 8,000 of contractual. And basically, we didn't say you can't have this, this, and this.
No, I
We
understand
took out a
that.
dollar amount and put that money into a reserve fund for your truck. Because we're trying to get more money put aside so that we're not bonding out in a couple of years, so that we have the money set aside to pay for your truck when you need it. So basically, the message I think that we were sending was, you're 12,000 lean now, do with it as you will. But the total dollars you got the entire total dollars going to the fire department.
Right, now, but that was a decision you guys chose to make. Traditionally, the larger apparatus purchases that have a lifespan of at least 20 years have been bonded. And that has not been part of the traditional budget line of the fire department. When we do have the command vehicle, and now we will have two, and that lifespan is closer to 10. That makes a lot more sense to have a rolling fund for. So when you got, as far as I'm concerned, it appears to me that you have taken that away. So I don't know where we're gonna be at when the 2008 is up for its, replacement. I mean, I hope there's not a discussion, well, you guys should have, budgeted for that, because I think we were forward enough to throw that in there. That's been removed. I understand what you're looking at, that you have a $500,000 engine purchase in the future coming, but, I think it's naive to think that we're gonna have that in hand to buy that vehicle.
Not all of it, but and I understand what you're saying about in the past it's been bonded. That's because in my opinion, that was poor management.
It was poor management.
And,
going forward, we'd like to
Not
have.
on the part of the fire department.
no,
No,
No, that's
Well,
the decision we made. Again, we shuffled
I
that
got
money
you
to
making that
reserve.
decision, but
It's a good decision financially, because if we're spending $500,000 on the truck and we're bonding it, and what would be the interest rate, or the amount of interest we pay on a $500,000 loan, long-term debt?
Long-term, you're looking at 4 to 5%.
Yeah, so.
Long-term, 30-year
Yeah,
debt.
so that's a couple $100,000, $300,000, $200,000 on interest.
If you look at the amortization schedule, it does.
This is a mistake we made that we're correcting, that's all, just nothing, meaning you didn't put
No,
your budget together well.
I understand, but when-
Because you did plan well, we just looking at trying to rectify something that we've neglected to have done in the past.
and this is the first year that we're doing it. This is our first budget. Understand that now we're saying to the people that really care about the fire department, want to make some financial moves, your budget needs to be bigger next year. Because what's gonna happen is I wanna put even more money aside for the truck. We can do it. This year, we've leaned out a lot of things, but we've also set aside more contingency and reserve money than has ever happened in the village in 1 year.
I understand, but my message is, you can't rob the two main funding sources that we're here to talk about, equipment and contractual, to do that. I mean, we're not expanding in any new services, but nothing has got less expensive. And I really would ask somebody to come up with something that we buy that is waste. You know, it's just
Okay.
not a fact. It's not a fact.
Here's something
And
that I'll
you've
tell
got
you
more
we're looking to do.
grants per
Yeah,
percentage than any other department.
And we wanna reward you for that, we actually discussed that. And Ed's gonna of course hate me, but that's beside the point. Those groups that go out and get the grants, and those groups go out and get side of money, we had talked about the breathers. What are
the
they?
self-contained.
How you guys were looking to try and get those through outside money. I want those in your budget, but we're gonna try and get outside money. So we went and got outside.
Well, that's
I know
what that
that.
reserve is for.
I know, but let's go after outside money anyway. So we got thousands of dollars sitting there for that, we went out and got outside money, now we can pay for those for that, now that money is sitting there. As a board member, what I'd like to do is not just say, okay, well, you can keep that money. No, I wanna give you a little bit more, because you're making more of an effort than another department. That's just saying, give me your tax money and I'll spend it. Okay, so, but,
And you can't even do that, by the way. Like, and this is a fight I've had with the board in the past, and that's why I gave up writing for the AFG grant for the village. Like, we have a $10,000 grant right now. We did it through the volunteer organization for the smoke detectors because it says in there, you have to agree to maintain that funding level that you have already established. So, meaning if you constantly fund contractual in the $50,000 range, you can't go out and get AFG grants to reduce your budget.
what do you need to be at?
No, what I'm saying is, when we're looking at right now, equipment-wise, is, you know, we have to go back to the 07, 08 budget year to go back to that level. That's how I'm explaining to you how lean we are now. And I started the
what were those
process with
numbers?
the 2% in my mind, and that's how, for instance, contractual, before I even came here, you know, you guys asked that night, how did you get, you know, why did you drop this? I said, because because I set that as the number I had to get on there. So I was very lean to begin with. So the 50,000 scares me. Now, I 100% agree with the board's feeling that, well, there was all this money left in this year's, but things that needed to be done were not done. Like everything contractually, like we have a plan how to go out the year, but was everything tested that needed to be tested? No, and things like that. I took it practically. We didn't have a funding stream in there to test the primal vent system, all these other things. So I am nervous about that contractual level dropping $8,000 when I leaned it to begin with.
And the contractual especially, you know, there really isn't anything that I can look at and say, well, we could push that off a year.
I mean, like for instance, I think I knocked physicals down a little. That's our biggest thing. Now, we have a lot of new members, so meaning if whatever we paid last year for physicals is maybe a misnomer because, you know, we got that many more people to do this year. And it's like $340 a person.
Right.
And that's after we went out to bid and found the best one and everything in that nature. You know, that's what worries me here. And, you know, I think we're in good shape with putting the 25,000 away for the SCBA. That's a big nut in the future. And, I mean, there's no way around that. But I'm worried that the command vehicle is lost in it, because that's a vehicle that shouldn't be bonded. So if we're not saving for that, you know, we pretty much know right now that to buy that next engine, at least part of it's gonna have to be bonded. I mean, it's in the $500,000
We're not gonna
range.
come up with $500,000, you're correct.
Right. I mean, wait till you hear when we start thinking about it, that I want $10,000 for the consultant, but, you know, we'll get to that when we get there. No, but I know a lot of places that are using that consultant, and he's well worth the money.
Is that in this budget? Cause there's my 10.
No, I wish. But that's when you go to, you know, but when the guy comes in there first, and he saves you $10,000 telling you what you don't even need on your rate, that's a pretty good deal. You know, I know some places that are using them right now, but that's a different discussion.
Just to order the rig?
Well, no, they do everything. They help you with the spec. Now, first of all, I think I have a good knowledge of the fire service. I don't know if I'd want to spec a $500,000 rig without help. And they're there with you for acceptance, which is huge.
I'm not sure with the rest of the board, I know that we've talked about certain things, but as far as that's concerned, several other professionals that we've gone out to, I agree with you 100%. Because they're not just gonna say, he's not gonna save $10,000, he's gonna save $50,000.
And the acceptance too, because they sit there, and I've seen them with that checklist, and they're like, that's not what was in the spec, that's that, and it's a big deal to sign off and take something that's worth
Spend a lot of money,
$500,000.
yeah. Without doubt.
Yeah, so,
Well,
I mean, that's
agree
a
with that.
future
Yeah, that's-
discussion,
yeah, and
you know.
something, when that time comes,
Yeah.
we're not gonna say no to that. I mean, if we need to do that, we will do that.
Especially since you're not doing it.
But, you know,
Better.
so, I mean, what we're doing right now, we're not, like, for instance, I'm trying diligently to make smart purchases with what's left of our end of the year money. I've never been, and I never will be the guy that just buys stuff to use the budget. We frequently gave back the money when we had it available. And it takes me a long time to buy anything, like with all the research I'm doing and making sure that, so. And a lot of it is like driving back to the firehouse twice today to see what the number was on this and taking inventory of what we had and give a real practical level and know that there's 8 helmets in next year's budget, but we're really down 16, so I need to get 8 now, you know. I mean, and that's what I've been working through. So, I mean, any questions on any of the intricacies I can answer, but, you know, I know one of the items that was immediately questioned in the equipment line was the iPads, and I think that would be my almost #1 purchase next year. I mean, just because of what the capabilities it's gonna give us that we didn't have, or, you know how much safer it's gonna make us with knowing everything about these buildings. And it's something we've always known about, but it was never in an affordable range for us, and never in a user-friendly range for us. And I would compare it to, you go out to your police vehicle out there, and there's not one of them out there without a computer in there connected. But realize that system that they use is 5 times more than ours. You know, we found it in a system that's worked. It's gonna give us good intelligence on our buildings. It's gonna give us good ability to track our response times, everything like that. And just the simple ability to have the hydrant on there. I was explaining it to a member that was very skeptical, and then as soon as I was done explaining it, they were like, that's great. You know, like the ability to think that you get on the fire truck, flip through the map book, get to the page in time. Wow, you gotta put your pack on, you gotta put the CO meter on. you gotta put the camera on. I think I'm one of the fastest guys getting my stuff on, and I still can't do it in time, you know? Meanwhile, the way it'll be is it'll just automatically have that address and your hydrants will appear to you, you know? It'll make us more efficient. It's like the number one thing.
Very
Yeah.
cheap tool for $350.
Out of curiosity, will it include Fort Montgomery? 'Cause I
It
have a
can
hard
include
time-
whatever we put into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and it actually has the ability, for instance, the 911 text always shows Fort Montgomery as Highlands, right? So you can teach it that Highlands means Fort Montgomery, so then it can reconcile itself with that, with the maps. Like, that's how most apps right now can't make that work, because when you get that address for Fort Montgomery to the 911 center, it lists the town as Highlands, right? And Google Maps doesn't recognize that to reconcile the address. This will, actually. And whatever you have hydrant data for, like, we worked hard with Orange County GIS to try to get our hydrant map data right. I would think their hydrant locations are newer,
And
probably,
scores are.
hopefully, no, but hopefully in the GIS data.
One thing I might want to recommend to the board with the conversation is the board's expressed an interest to have more oversight on dollars. So maybe set aside a little bit more reserve fund money and then have that as a item through the year that if the fire department comes forward and says, look, we're falling short,
Can it be called contingent as opposed to reserve?
contingent.
That's what I was gonna say.
So if you plussed up your contingency fund 5,000 or something like that, then that would give the board discretion that later on in the year, if it turns out that the estimates are low, that there would be some funding available to transfer to the fire department's budget.
Well, can we add 10 to 12,000 contingency
No.
under the fire
No,
department?
it's a general aid fund contingency.
I actually wouldn't mind taking, I don't know if we can, but taking that, knowing that you guys are doing the bare bones, not bare bones, but keeping everything tight to the budget. If you had that $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in contingency you didn't touch, rolling that into your truck fund at the end of the year, I don't know if we can do that, but again, I'm looking for, knowing you guys and knowing that you're not inflating your budget to get a lower budget.
Like I can.
Knowing that is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
You guys saying, look, we didn't inflate it, but you know what, I found 3 other avenues, so we saved $4,000. That, again, it's one of those things where I wanna reward the groups that are trying to do that, so you don't lose the 4. I'd like to roll that into one of your funds. That's,
I can live with equipment with the cut, because for instance, I can order those portable radio batteries tomorrow, meaning, and use that with this year's, because honestly, it was an oversight on my part. They had a 2-year lifespan, I was trying to get more out, but they are dying by the day now, so I can make that work. I wasn't as nervous about that, I'm more nervous about how tight, I got tighter with contractual, and then you guys just took a dollar amount out, and I don't see, contractual never really decreases. I decreased it at one point when I was cheap, because it was like increasing a lot, and we bought the radios instead of leasing them. We bought them out, we ended up buying the used ones that we had, and it has turned out very good for us. We were paying at least $475 a month to lease those radios we had. And we bought them from Nikon Co. We have no radio leases now, and that's been about 4 years. And, what was the advantage of a lease? That they would come and fix things for free? I think we've spent less than $1,000 a year on radio repairs. I mean, it's been a very, but aside from that, I haven't found any great ways to reduce contractual. I mean, and we're a part of every, group purchasing plan and things like that, attempting to, save that there are, but the contractual is what bothers me the most. I can make that equipment line work with what's left and with what's proposed, and I can make that work. I'm just nervous of where we'll be contractually.
And Eric just pointed out some of the areas, like the physicals, and the fact that we just took on 4 new volunteers. All of those volunteers have to be suited up, and bunker gear comes with a pretty hefty price tag.
You can't do, we can't do a fire permit contingency, it's gotta be a general contingency? But can we earmark it under general contingency, or just know that it's there?
Just know it's there and just, again, the whole purpose of contingency is statistically throughout your budget, you're gonna have some areas where you're gonna be short. It's just, nobody budgets perfectly. So that's why you have that contingency to shore up the areas that fall short. You'll have other areas that won't spend all the money,
Right.
and those will become your fund balance.
So by next March, if we're 8,000 short under contractual, the fire company
Well, you guys will have control over that, because every contingency
Right.
transfer, you guys will make the board decision on that.
I have no problem beefing up, if they're comfortable with a $4,000 off on the equipment, I have no problem beefing up the contingency.
I can make that work,
8,000.
and I'm trying to get
No, well, there is
that spent now.
there is no
Okay.
specific
Okay.
thing, but we're here.
Okay,
I know that these two guys will remind us where it is,
yeah,
so that I have no problem beefing it up $8,000 into contingency, so that we have that buffer. And here's the reason why I'm not just gonna give it back. All our departments, we're pulling more into contingency, so that you actually have to come to us. So for example, this year, if you weren't doing the car and you didn't spend all that money, half of that would be in a contingency fund, and you wouldn't have access to it. And that's what we're trying to show our taxpayers, that we're trying to be more responsible on how we spend. And we're not just giving because what it is everything on your list, that doesn't mean you're gonna get it. You're getting $72,000, and, we're gonna get 2 more cars, We don't have control over, once we give the money to you, what you're spending it on. But if we keep it in a contingency fund, we do. So we're trying to get more control over, and as we work together, this board with the departments, and as we see, in particular, and this is where I'm looking for the reports, as you guys, save on something, the reports are good. We did this many fires, we did this. As a board, I'm glad you guys were doing the work. What I really wanna know is, we went out and saved $42 on this item that we were looking at. I don't wanna hear every minute of it, but also, we went after 4 grants. We only got 1, but we went after 4. Knowing the effort makes it easy, and that's why it's not gonna take us 2 hours to discuss this. I'm okay with beefing up right now, because I know what you guys do, and I know the effort you put into it. But that's what I wanna hear back on a periodic report is, as far as we're concerned, I want more numbers and more, what are we doing to get more money for the fire department, and what are we doing to save more money for the village, so that now I can take, because I want you to come back at the end of the year and go, look, we saved another $5 grand. How about you put that into the the truck fund?
Pat, I do want to get clarification on one thing though. If contractual appears in our budget to go down $8,000, Eric, does that impede our ability to go for grants?
You have mentioned
No.
that, and I'm concerned about that.
I mean, I'll, first of all, I haven't written for the equipment side in quite a few years. I write for the fire prevention and the research side for work a lot, and I know the people personally, so I can call, but that has always been I would think that deals with contractual, but, I mean, with equipment, so,
Oh, with it.
when was the last time we were that low? Now, we self-imposed ourselves that low, because I felt it was right to put the 25,000 away this year for the SCBA, for the discussion we had. We don't think we're buying it in this fiscal year, till the next one, till everything, till we have a clear picture of like what upgrading the other ones would be, and things like that, so
And not that I
I think
wanna,
that's why we are where we are right now.
not that I wanna throw numbers around the wrong way, but I would much rather, if you need $6,000 more, it's just like any numbers where we go out for stuff. If you're not gonna be able to apply for certain grants, because your number is so low, I wouldn't mind, if that's the issue, and you show it to us that, look, there's a good chance we can get another $20,000 if we were up here where we should be. Again, when we give you that money, it's yours to spend. If you don't spend it, we can discuss rolling that over into your truck fund. So if you had a higher equipment fund, we're able to get a couple of grants, outside money, to help, and you ended up with $20,000 at the end of the year, and you did all you had to do, that's just better for us. That means we can roll into your truck and we're not gonna bond it out, and you know, that's 20,000, and we're that closer to getting it. So if there is, again, just like we showed in the parking lot, do me a favor, let us know. Let us know if we're losing out on $5, $10, $20, $100,000, because we didn't up your equipment fund $2,000 and you weren't at the
Yeah,
threshold.
but you can cross that bridge with a transfer,
Yeah.
okay?
And we can.
If you run into a case where it requires $50,000 and there's 48, then you just do a contingency transfer, and then you'll have the money in the fund.
But I think it's important for the board to recognize that, for instance, if we are funded for a project like that, it can't, the budget can't, the board can't think going forward that they can reduce the equipment line because of that.
We'll always wanna reduce our equipment line, you're gonna have to tell us we can't. And you're gonna tell us that you can't because we made the effort, we got this, and we're gonna lose it if you reduce the line. And again, I would rather keep the line there. If you guys end up not spending the money, we roll it over in a truck fund. I'm okay
I
with
think
giving
if
it
you
$10,000,
go back and look
$20,000.
at us,
Yeah, I've got the.
since I've been
exact
here,
numbers.
we gave money back. We, like I said, I mean, I spend the money like it's my own. I mean, I don't buy anything just for the sake of buying anything. And we get that budget, and we definitely buy things that aren't in the line, but we have to prioritize. For instance, we're buying a chainsaw because the chainsaw we had just died, and it has no hope of getting fixed, you know? Things like that. We prioritize, we don't come back and say, and like I did, with the equipment where we're at, and with the little I have left, I can make this work. It's the contractual that I worry about, based on, I think I got lean to begin with, to stay under the 2% level for you.
Well, we're gonna give you the,
on our part,
and I'm saying for me, but that's up to the board. I'm okay giving you the 8 back in contingency, but I'm more concerned about if you're short, and as Ed said, we can do it in a transfer. If you're going out there and you're looking for additional money, and you're not eligible because of the way the numbers are falling, or you're gonna go after something that's a 3 to 5 year process, and if it drops, you're gonna lose eligibility, just inform us. And that way we have that information and we can say,
We'll make the adjustment.
we'll make the adjustment. And we're not cutting because we're like, oh, fire department, let's take whatever. We're cutting to try and stay under the 2% cap so the taxpayers can live with it. But we don't wanna cut if the fire department can't live with it. We're gonna put everybody on their heels. You're the only ones that came back and we're like, wow, this can't happen.
Mayor, the board has a good example, that project, that sewer project that's going on out there,
Exactly.
that is just a picture of what the infrastructure of the village is like. And if you don't start doing this stuff now, the amount of borrowing that's gonna have to happen to fix a lot of that stuff, talk about getting to your constitutional tax
And
standard.
it's unforeseen, this is,
Yeah.
and you may spend a couple $100,000 that, we're talking about 2% cap with homeowners, the tax rates, and now this throws a number into that equation that just puts us on our heels, kinda. We didn't anticipate spending that. We certainly didn't budget for it, and we don't know what we have going forward. So it's nothing personal, we just try to keep everybody as lean as possible to live under this 2%, the reality of the 2%. So that's kind of where we're at.
And I'll put something to you as I'm gonna put to the other department heads. And I'm not gonna make a guarantee, because whether this board's here or not is a different story. I mentioned it before, if you guys go out and you make the effort and you're able to pull in money for stuff that's on your budget, and you can pull it off the line, you come to the board and say, hey, by the way, we got 3 grants, we pulled $20,000, what was budgeted, or we pulled $20,000 that wasn't on there, we needed it for this. You come to us, I'm looking to reward those departments that are putting the effort in and making the extra efforts. So at the end of the day, it's not gonna be, well, we're gonna throw you a big party, but what we will do is, Eric just mentioned, how about we see a little bit in the the car fund. You know what, end of the year, you guys come back with, hey, we saved you this much, all right, I wanna take half of that, it's gonna go right in your car fund. And then when you guys come back for the next budget, we're gonna recognize that you have another $5,000 you saved the village. That's what I'm putting out to people. So as of right now, what I'm gonna move on, and we'll get a board, thing. You say you can deal with the 4, you're looking for the 8.
I can deal with that,
We're gonna
I
put-
just don't
We'll
worry
put
about
the 8,
the
we're gonna put the 8 in a contingency fund, which will be available if need be. The only thing we're asking is, like, you come into March, April, you guys are fine, run with it. Even if you come into January and all of a sudden you're getting like, we need that money. The only difference is, instead of just writing the check, you gotta come here first and say, we've spent what we spent, we did what we did, we told you guys we were lean, we need that contractual money. And you'll come to us, and I feel that I have no qualms that there's 4 of us here, because of what you do is gonna be that way, but understand we're doing that because we're trying to keep a tighter cap on tax money. Not because of you, everyone, contingency funds were set up across the board, and we're bumping up all contingency funds, and then shifting some of that more into reserve funds of money that we're not gonna touch. Because as Ed just said, it's, a fire truck's coming up, at least 4 million in sewer and water is coming up on the south end. There's a lot, and we're trying to figure out where we're gonna get the money. We're not gonna nickel and dime it, you're right, Eric, there's no way we're gonna get the 500,000 by the time you guys need a truck. But the closer we get, the less amount of money we're gonna have to borrow.
You know, plus, Mayor, one other thing, there's a lot of trade-offs that have to happen. You know, I'll forward to you that most municipalities aren't increasing their fleets of vehicles, they're actually cutting them. And that's just because of the affordability issue. So to some degree, you know, you get some, you don't get some, there's trade-offs. You know, that car, that addition of that car is going against the norm right now. Very few places are doing it, because they can't afford it, they can't do it. So.
I respectfully disagree when it comes to the fire service on that. I mean, that's a car that everybody else has already had 10 years.
That's
right.
right,
mean,
he's
the
I
saying,
agree, they
The
have
fact
it.
that I'm
Oh, yeah,
still
they're not
here,
getting it.
you're right.
I mean, it's crazy to ask me to use my personal vehicle to do that.
I agree.
Eric,
So,
Eric,
that I
no,
would take- yeah.
you're right, what Ed is not, he's not saying that, what he's saying is,
They're not adding it now.
they're not adding any more now.
We should have added
They
it.
always
Yours.
Actually,
have
They
had it.
might have had
a
it
lot of
5 years
places in the
ago.
county are adding a vehicle for fire police. I mean, I'm not saying.
You got it, don't worry, we're not taking that away.
Yeah,
You got it.
But
no,
they're trade-offs.
no, I.
So are you
understand.
okay with the $8,000 in a contingency that basically you just have to come to us and say, we've spent all our money, we're gonna need that 8,
All
give
right.
it to us.
So that answers contractual, but we still have the command vehicle fund that disappeared.
It did?
It didn't disappear, we didn't put money into it.
All right, because it never appeared. Now, when you have those discussions with the police department, because their vehicles are under, you know, a police vehicle doesn't last that long, and you know, you're having those discussions about why there wasn't a fund for that, it's prudent to have a fund for that vehicle, which is gonna appear, you know, more frequently. It's not something that even has a chance to be, or, I mean, it should never be funded, you know what I mean?
Then
So,
yes.
we're not funding that now, and that's gonna appear again.
Well, that,
Every
I
5 years.
can't
And
tell
I don't
you.
wanna have to come here and be like, you know, have to fight for something that's, and I don't wanna have to say every 5 years that the equipment line goes to nothing to fund that vehicle. That should be something else. I think that should be there. I mean, we established the need for it.
Eric, I haven't fought aggressively to get that into this budget, only because I know the realities that we're facing this year and next year. I would be hard pressed, given the fact that we've established this other $25,000 reserve. I agree with you, we've got to start saving for it, but I'd sort of like to put it off for 2 years before we,
Well, let's
and
keep,
maybe put a larger sum.
I actually
Well,
don't wanna
let's
put it off for
keep
2
it-
years, we actually discussed that while we were talking about it. I think what we had talked about was we wanna get the fire truck fund started so we can get it started. And we were gonna look at putting money into the car reserve next year.
Oh, good, I
But-
missed that.
But let's realize that we came in here with last year's funding level and stayed within the 2% of that, and we're establishing those two funds. The way I look at it now is, although you've established this other fund, we came in with a very, smart budget, and we were penalized further for it, and by taking that away. So, I don't wanna keep coming back to fight for a command vehicle or whatever, and in the same way, you're talking to me about incentivizing me to write a grant. This is why I stopped writing grants for the village.
I thought we only took the 8 and the 4.
No,
You eliminated the 8,000 that was being put in for the command vehicle.
Right, that was
And
the
put
8.
it toward a truck.
yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's the 8, and then the 4
No,
for.
the 8 was out of.
So we did
the
8,
crack-
8, and 4?
Correct.
Huh.
85,
Right.
You see what I'm getting at? Like, we came in, and it was our discussion about having a fund for that started the discussion, well, how are we gonna replace the major apparatus? And at the end of the day, our good idea resulted in us losing our good idea. So, I'm just saying, when you're trying to incentivize somebody to do it, I feel like I came in and put a lot of work into it and I feel as if I'm gonna have to go write letters again in the future and everything to justify something that,
So what you're saying is you just don't like where the money is allocated, you would rather have a command vehicle fund instead of a truck fund?
I think the command vehicle fund has to be something that's set aside for it, cause it's, in my mind, we're going with a 10-year lifespan on those, which is practical here, it's longer, but we realize we're Hollow Falls. So, to me, that results, no, we do, I think that's the truth, but that means you're still buying a vehicle every 5 years, so when you don't budget that,
Okay.
what will the next one cost, like?
We set
No.
12 aside for the truck. They're very passionate about I'm not putting on the dime, don't hate me. We set 12 aside for the truck. They're very passionate about the car over the truck. I have no problem splitting the difference. If you guys want to put, is it okay if we put 5 in the car, leave 7 in the truck?
I would
And that
be
way
very
you're
happy that
established
you were
as
establishing the
founded.
fund
Right,
that
it's founded and,
that we think,
20 in a truck.
you put 20 in the truck, because you know the
We've
truck
got
is.
no, well, we put 12, we pulled 12 out. is what I'm
Right,
saying.
out.
That's what I'm saying, we pulled 12 out
Of the equipment line.
of that line to put in there.
Right.
So, would that
And by the
be?
way, you can never get a grant for the truck, even though they have them, I've always looked into it, the level of poverty we would have to be in to get that,
Right.
is something we never.
But that's
I just-
why, what I'm saying is, we can get grants for a lot of other things, and I'm
We
not
can
asking
and
you
we
guys,
have.
right,
We can
and
and
I'm
we
not
have.
asking you guys to spend your whole life doing that. But what I'm saying is, for those that put the effort out, and that's why we're trying to work with you here, for those who put the effort out, you'll get it when you need it. And
So,
that's-
so
I do see-
is the suggestion now to put 12,000 for the engine and 8,000 for the command vehicle?
5 for the command vehicle, and the rest in the engine.
I could live with it.
Done. Bob,
That's fine.
Anthony?
The only thing if it's a $500,000 engine, what is $15,000 really gonna do?
Well, 15 a year.
No, but it is, because we
15 years
will
for
come
10
to
years.
you to ask for
Yeah,
that.
5 years.
To start
Problem
all
is,
this,
it's-
you know,
yeah.
on every department and we'll be
If you don't
better
We
off.
have to start somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere and we
Okay.
decline, we haven't done that.
But that's another thing, if we get a couple good years, we can beef it up a lot more. I really believe that. And particularly, again, I hate to beat the dead horse.
But you
Well,
weren't
you pull
here,
a couple extra grants in, I will roll that money into there.
you weren't here for the discussion, we'll just bring you back to the reality is, the ages of the vehicles, one is a 1995, which puts it at 19 now, and many times we've replaced them at 20, but we didn't, I think it's in good shape. I spent a lot of time updating it, that I don't even want to get rid of it myself. And then the next one's a 99 and a 2001. That's the only thing that worries me from time to time, is that you get to a point when they're all, I never want to say that we're pushing it with all of them, and then they all go bad at once. So we did budget for the pump test, which we should have been doing in the past, but we haven't. And that will give us a little better picture of like the serviceability of the vehicles. But realize, it's not like it's 10 years down the road when we're buying this next rig. It's 6 if everything's going well. I'm
But
just
you're
throwing that
gonna
out.
be
No, I
a couple
understand
bucks
there's
ahead
a
than you
reason
are
they're
now.
there, but
Yeah.
I think you need to realize the reality.
We
We
did,
have-
we understand.
We have a
Of course I gotta
45
give
truck,
these guys-
I remember you talking about
$2,000.
I know, but putting money in the bank.
But we might
is a
have
smart thing to do.
100,000 in the bank.
It's
Right.
100,000 less we bond and
Right.
pay 75,000 in
Right.
interest over 30 years.
And there's also the pump test, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
gonna tell us how much.
we'll be
longer
ahead of the
things
game,
are gonna
100
last.
grand in the bank, so.
So is that good?
But that's the reality where we're at.
So, Mayor, what are we doing?
These are more discussions, again, the reports you give at the monthly meetings, very cool, but these are more discussions I wanna have.
15.
Hey, by the way, we're 4 years away from meeting
Okay,
this,
now these are specific.
This is what I'm
reserves.
telling my
We
department
actually
heads,
break this out.
and I know you guys
Another line.
are working when I have these meetings, but
Okay, so
that's something
15,000 for the truck,
between Charlie and you guys, we're gonna have to get,
and then
we need a better
5,000 for the
picture.
vehicle.
No,
We're
he-
4
he's
months,
done
we're 4
that.
years out,
Yeah,
right.
He's done a good job with that.
Right, we're 4 years on this, 2 years on this, 2 years on this, that, we need a 3 to 5 to 20-year plan of where you guys are, so that we are budgeting, so that we need to know, no, we need to budget another $30,000 on top of this, because we are behind the 8 ball already.
You know,
I don't want to be there where I've gotta bond out $1 million because 2 trucks go down.
so I'm just-
Okay, so we need that picture from you, and to put it out to the public, because when we raise taxes, or when we spend more money on it, they need to understand, we'll show them 2 burning houses, these people survived because these people showed up, and they need another $32,000.
That's gonna,
Done.
assertion rate's gonna.
And I'm telling you right now, the reason why these were going into reserves is,
Before we
I,
get.
I've gotten a lot of inquiries
So
about
this
the
8 knocks
truck
off.
that we
This
approved,
is now,
the
this is
command
17,000. So we-
and I'm sure everyone has.
Yes.
Because $30,000 left over, because certain things weren't done, like you said, so that money was left over. A lot of people said, why was that money, why did it, everyone, a lot of people think it was over budget. I'm not saying it was, I started in February, I didn't start a year or 2 years ago, so this is the first time I'm dealing with it, but a lot of people have come to me and said that you guys over budgeted, which I don't believe, because they wanted to get a truck at the end.
What happened
You know what I'm
with the,
saying? So that's why we
well,
tried to more control where things are going with.
the board
the
placed the
reserves.
SCBA back in the budget, when they denied the truck. I wasn't here, but that's the way it was explained to me, and it appears is the board placed the SCBA back in the budget,
Last year.
last year when they deleted the trucks. Now, and I think the SCBA was probably budgeted more than the vehicle. Now,
So that's where
we
the money came from.
explained the reason why we don't wanna buy the SCBA right now is because it's incompatible with what we have now. And we are not able to upgrade ours now.
Right, you
Remember
explained
that
it
whole
last time, you
discussion?
explained it last time.
And
the standards
it's not
are
even
changing.
something we could do right now, so we could have bought those SCBA and we would have bought $5,000 piece SCBA's and put them in a closet waiting.
Mhm.
And we didn't have a true picture of what was going on. That is the true reason why that happened. And then, you're correct, we inherited that budget.
Right.
And it's my opinion that maybe the best case and explanation was not put forth on that vehicle, but
Well, and admittedly, what was put forward on the vehicles, they want, what we were told was 2 used vehicles.
I saw
And
that budget, yeah.
Didn't seem like it was the most prudent choice.
I think the path that we are on now with 10-year lifespan, new vehicle, you know, with the fund is the right way to proceed from here forward. And I
didn't know.
kind of ironed that out.
It's already done.
Oh, we motioned.
But that's
Oh,
where
we're
that
not-
was, there was
second.
no, I mean, believe what you want, but there was no
We're not gonna
conspiracy that was the
Oh.
case, you know.
Done.
I knew all along that it was not taken by the SCBA, and I've been in contact
8,000
with the
and split
manufacturer the whole time. And, you know, MES, the vendor wants to sell us to them, but even he agreed with us,
Right.
you know, that it was not right with where we were.
That's where that money came. It wasn't, I said,
Okay.
When they
Conspiracy
deleted
to
the
buy a truck
vehicles,
again,
they
that's
added,
Money
they
was-
pushed the SCBA back in there.
I got it, I
Yeah,
understand.
so that's how that happened.
All right, we're good to go. If you guys are comfortable with that, that's the way we're gonna present the budget.
Okay.
May I make a motion about this, the parking
No.
lot?
These feeling votes today.
Okay.
Long day.
I'm moving that we accommodate the fire department in providing parking in lot number 2, Farmers Market, on
No, just lot two.
lot 2. Where's the date? The 27th?
April 27th,
April 27th,
from noon to 3.
noon to 3. Thank you.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for explaining it to us again, I mean, but we,
And as for getting
We're gonna
money,
feed on
like we said, we
fire
just
here.
ordered hundreds of smoke detectors, the best ones out there. We got a grant for that, and when we get our program set up, we're gonna go out and install those. And they're gonna be 10-year lifespan, dual sensor, it's a very good program, and it's very good for life safety,
So
so.
battery-
And that will cost you guys nothing.
Right, the information though is dual here. This is
Photo
why,
electric
no,
ionization,
not
that's
that.
a big deal.
what I'm saying is, when you do something like that, we need to be informed so we know how aggressive you guys are on getting the money. But the community needs to be more informed of all these extra things you're doing and the moves you're making with the money, so that when a truck comes up, that you got a new truck, people aren't going off like, oh my God. No, you know what, well, they did get a new truck, you know why? They just raised $200,000 that you didn't pay for. So quiet down and back away.
But that's
They do the work,
10,000.
they're the ones that are doing it every day, you know, just so they understand that it's way more than they're even thinking, and I know, I've seen it, so we wanna make sure they know what you're doing.
Really only Kitty and First Alert, and it was very hard to just, to get the one with the 10-year, we're actually gonna pull the batteries out and put different ones in.
what kind of battery is it though?
It's gonna be an ultralife, we're gonna put an ultralife
Okay.
lithium in there, that'll give you 10 years,
Right,
and
It should last the life of the detector.
and it's strictly just battery.
So
it's
if
strictly
you
a
don't-
battery.
Yeah,
So we're gonna go,
ionization and-
it was written, we're gonna go towards disadvantaged populations first.
Right.
They're more adversely affected by fire, it makes sense,
Yep,
so that's where we're gonna go.
the older the home, the better, that's where.
No, I mean, that's where it's,
Yeah.
it's the way to do it, yeah.
Right.
And it's a program that's in a lot of communities nationwide, and it was a priority of that funding stream, and I thought we had a good case, and we obviously did.
And you're heading in the right direction, because those homes had no codes when they were built, so chances are none of them have smoke detectors.
And we go in these
Very few.
homes and know,
The
and we
newer
see
has
this.
everything, carbon dioxide detectors and smoke
Right.
and fire, so.
So it's twofold, because, you know, it adds that protection and also gets us to interact, you know, with those people. So, you know, they see us out there, maybe they wanna join, or whatever. you know.
Just be safer.
Yes,
That's good, you get in and take a peek and you can bring to their attention maybe some flaws.
that's part of it too, just a little checklist. It's not an inspection, but it's, you know, a kind reminder of,
Yeah.
you know, a little fire safety.
They have somebody take a look at this, that sort of thing, yeah.
Definitely.
Excellent,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, let's go through the highlights of the changes, and just a couple other notes that came up. First thing, what I recommend the board for a couple of considerations. One, there is a 10-day issue for the constitutional tax limit. They recommend 10 days. I've seen it done in less, but we're gonna try to do it with 10 days. What I'd like to do is to have the budget with all the changes and everything available for the board next Monday, okay, for the board meeting. But not adopt it until the 28th. Now, what that does is, number one, we don't have to rush to adopt it, because once we adopt it, we can't do anything. The other thing is it gives us another week to look at fund balance, okay, to see if there's any other benefits. Now, I'm being very conservative with fund balance. One of the main reasons is what's going on now. Again, that's the sewer fund, but I just see in all cases with the search going on and so on, I have a feeling that next year we might be relying on fund balance to maybe make up some of the shortfalls. Okay, so a strong fund balance going into next year is going to be a desirable situation. Now, the fact that we've worked on our bands and stretched them out a little bit, that will help us a little bit to make out a little bit more money. Right now, you're about 17,000 from the cap, 3,008,000. Okay, I recommend that we try to leave ourselves a little bit of a carryover for next year, and then, right now it appears that this might be the last iteration, but we'll go through it. So my recommendation is I'll have an updated budget. This is updated, but I'll have an updated one with the last items that we have here, and then making sure that everybody's good with the changes that were made since the last meeting. And then we set up to adopt the budget on the 28th. You could just hold a special meeting to do it. Couple things on page 1. I numbered the pages. Now again, the pages are numbered basically based on their content, not in order, because it's not really that useful to not number 1 through 10 or 1 through 15. It's better to have them broken up by the different funds that they're correlating to. So when we go to page 1 of the actual breakout, you're going to see a $9.69 tax rate. Last year it was $8.88, and it gives you pause. All of a sudden you're like, wait a second, that's like 81 cents. Okay? Well, the reduction in the assessed values was about 9%. That equates to about a 70-cent rate change to make up the same amount of dollars with the assessed value. Now, everybody was afforded an opportunity to look at the assessments and how they were down in tens of thousand increments. So effectively what will happen is your rate's going to go up. On par would be $9.58. So if you had the same exact budget raised tax requirement as last year, our tax rate would be $9.58 per thousand. Okay? But obviously you need a little bit more funding because of raises and everything else, so it's putting you up an additional 9 cents to $9.69. Now, it might go up another penny because you added that $8,000 contingency. So it's probably going to look like it's going to be around $9.70 per thousand. Okay? Now, when we factor this in, it's important to look at the comparisons. In 2012 and 2013, the amount to be raised by taxes was $2,839,662. You might want to just write this as a comparison. So what I did, just to show you guys an example, I took my sheet and I just wrote in the different dates so you could compare the levies. Okay? So you have 2012-13, 2013-14, 2014-15, which is the proposed. Okay? Follow me? Okay? So the first number that would be 2012-13 is $2,839,662. And that rate per thousand was $8.43. The 2013-14 was $2,949,053. And that rate was $8.88. And then your 2014-15 is approximately $9.69 versus $9.70. So a penny plus or minus is going to fall over there, okay? So I just want you to understand that the tax rate is going up dramatically, but it's largely a function of your assessed values. And as I mentioned, the one area that you're probably going to maybe have a little bit of issue that comes up is the commercial properties, because they certainly on par could see 9% tax increase, and you're still within the tax cap. Okay, because the tax cap doesn't really talk about how much anybody's individual rate goes up. It talks about your revenues from the previous year not going up more than 2%.
So next year we can anticipate all the commercial property owners?
Certs.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't, it is what it is. I'm not sure I would have exactly gone that way to do it, but, I guess the most people that will scream are your residential properties, because the commercials, some of them will just pass off the costs, right? If they can. Okay, so that's just in a nutshell what we're looking at as far as that. Okay.
Didn't you say that most residential assessments went down?
Yes.
So,
So you probably won't hear much from the residential taxpayers. You might hear from some of the commercial. And some of the other commercial, cost of doing business, so I guess that was a strategy in the decision to lower one side versus the other. I don't know. I wasn't there. Okay. Anthony, did you have some?
No,
Okay.
sure, like that.
Okay, all right, page 1, which would be revenues, general fund revenues. We added the tentative column and the adopted budget column. Obviously, adopted budget is blank. It will be populated for the 21st meeting. The revenues pretty much from the requested to the tentative were essentially the same. What you'll see is some of the changes as we go farther into the budget. So there's your revenue side for general fund. There was really no changes other than the fund balance. I lowered the fund balance by about $70,000. Okay, now what that in turn did is that increased your levy, because if you have less fund balance, you need more levy. So to some degree, if the fund balance comes in better the week of the 21st, when I look at it a little bit more closely, because we'll only have 1 month left of expenses, then I could increase our fund balance, and then that would lower your levy, because it would be directly proportional. So if the fund balance goes up, that's your other revenue source, right? So if we move the fund balance up $30,000, then our amount we need from taxpayers will go down $30,000. Okay, so we do have that potential to do that. I'd like to try to stay on the lower side of fund balance if we can, but we don't necessarily have to. That's up to the board on how you want to strategize with that. Okay? All right, so now we're going to expenditures. And pretty much everything in expenditures largely is staying the same, except for a couple things. You've got the contingency up 8,000, which was just decided on. You've got your, on page 3 of 6, you've got your fire department. You want to split out the truck reserve. That has no material impact on the budget. It just is going to be a breakout of 2 reserve funds. You did increase judgment and claims. I'm sorry, on page 2, went up to 15,000, so that was increased $10,000.
And we feel confident about that.
Personally, it probably is going to need to be more, but, you know, maybe if we're able to do something with the fund balance, we'll add that line. Okay, so if I can find a little room with the fund balance, then maybe we can appropriate more to that line. Okay. All right, page 4. I'm trying to, where were celebrations? I might have skipped over
5.
celebrations.
Yes.
Page 5. Okay, celebrations was given $2,000.
Is that contingency, or that's that contractual?
Yeah.
Is there a celebration salary?
No.
That's what I want.
No.
I want salary.
What is this?
Who's salary?
I want to have money for a stipend for someone to coordinate all the stuff going on, so it doesn't get passed.
All right, well,
And invite everybody and do basically a protocol type person.
we would have to add,
You know what I'm saying?
we have to, would add that as a code, because there is no code right now. It would be basically 7550.01.
Do you understand what I'm saying, guys? Right now, like the flag raising that just happened. Right now, my goal was to give it to people, but the Greeks will organize the Greeks, the Italians will organize the Italians,
But the Irish can't.
the Irish can't do jack.
Can't be trusted by Irish.
But to coordinate to get them to a higher level, it's $2,000 for the year. It's not like it's a real part-time job or anything. But also making sure that the Memorial Day and all the other things, but beefing them up and getting them more. And I've also talked to the person that I'd like to do this about also raising money, more money, so that we can put it more into celebration, so that when we're doing stuff at Memorial Park or somewhere else, we have tables and chairs that belongs to the group that comes out, that we're not borrowing from 6 different areas, that get money for this, get money for that. Mr. McCormick, we talked about a sound system. We already put 2 grants in, didn't get them. The sound system at Memorial Park on the gazebo, so that we would, on a Memorial Day type thing, we would play nice patriotic background music. During the Christmas celebrations, we would have that. So there's a lot of different things they can start going after, but I can't, and you can't. And we need someone else to look at that. And they've agreed on a very small stipend to put a lot of hours in to really make sure the celebrations go out.
Again, you can budget for it. You guys are gonna have to legislate how that's structured. Okay, hourly, annually, you know,
Right.
so the budget part you can do, but you're still gonna have to do board action. on that position.
Whatever. And that's if you guys want to. That's something where I kind of know what that line was for, but I think that really what would happen, I would like to see, again, not to overload recreation, but I would like to see all of this go under a person in recreation again, where it's all, it really should be all together. And a paid person being taken, not doing it, not going out there and doing everything for the Greeks, but making sure it happens. And there's other things available, a couple phone calls, making sure that the right people get invited. I had 3 people at the Greek thing, and one was Hoovler, our DA, that was very happy that he got a letter. He's like, I really appreciate the letter. He said it 3 times. So just that act of doing that, which, I'll tell you what, I wasn't invited, because he wasn't on the list. My list was 4 people, you know, because that's what was done last year. But one of the people with the Greek group invited like 60 people, from the county, from the state, from everywhere.
So it's just like for mailings and different things?
Mailings and coordination and making, you know, and we have a large lab contingent. No, not being coordinated, not being organized, maybe we can, and again, I believe that our community relies on celebrations to bring money into, but also to celebrate what we have. And that's why I wanna see what we can do with this little money. If this person can build it up, take it off and make it happen, if not, then we don't do it this year.
It's worth a try.
So I wanna give it a shot.
Okay, so 2,000 on the salary line for celebrations?
Can I
Yeah, does,
have a suggestion or ask a question?
Sure.
The mayor, you have a secretary line in this budget.
Right,
You want it separate from, like, that person can't be,
we could, if it's
Can
easier and
increase
you think
that
that's
one.
okay, I have no problem with that.
I mean, you haven't established what that position is actually going to be either, you know, the
Right.
duties.
Yeah,
Which
you
will
have
have to be
1,500
created
allocated for that.
in civil service, you know,
That's a civil service type thing?
any job like that is, if you're doing.
This one too?
Yeah, anytime you
But
create
it's
a
part, it's
job,
part-time, so it
Right.
doesn't have the same,
but you have to create it there if we don't have it on our rolls. I mean, you can you tell them what it is we want the job description to be, you know,
yeah.
but you
Council,
have that
you're
in
saying-
here, so I'm wondering if that person that you want can be that same person.
Make it the same person, you're saying?
I'm asking Pat, I don't know what
Yeah.
his
Makes sense.
plan is then.
You save you a step of having to go to the county to establish a celebrations person.
I'm okay with that.
so we just put another 500 in,
Yeah, you have 1,500 on there.
2,000.
On
That
top?
other money, that other money's different, you're just gonna.
You want 2,000 on top of that?
Yeah,
So 3,500 in that line?
yeah, you're gonna give me 2 grand on this, we'll take it away now. Come on. Just so we understand, I didn't take any money for secretary last year, and before that, it was $3,000. So that's 24
Okay.
for the year.
All right,
Just
so
I wanna say-
sec-
don't feel compelled to spend it.
I didn't spend any.
So is it gonna be 3,500 or 3,000?
3,500.
Okay. Okay, so I put 3,500 on 1210.011, okay? That's on page 1 of 6. Okay, and I took off the celebrations line, so that's now back to 0. Okay? Refuge and garbage on page 5 is now refuse and garbage, but I did do a printout of that, and I just wanna make sure, almost all the money in 2013, $12,000 was spent for Morangi for refuse, okay? So you did spend material amount of money for refuse, okay?
For what now?
Morangi.
Morangi, it's a
Which is the garbage, yeah.
garbage,
Garbage, yeah.
carting, yeah. And then,
But was it for garbage or was it for the leaves? I was told it was for the leaves.
it doesn't tell me, it says organic waste, I'm assuming it's leaves.
Yeah.
There we go.
So,
But it says, on interstate waste, it says 8,592 so far this year,
Right, and,
this year.
They took over from Marangi.
right, but this year,
Yeah, you spent
$8,000?
$8,600.
on organic waste?
Yep, it's right there.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that you're gonna, if you're definitely
Well,
doing
this year we
it,
haven't had any real leaves. What are they dumping that's
you
organic?
did in the
Well,
fall.
it had to be in the fall, yeah.
You did-
Oh, this budget year?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We
Yeah,
had
so
12,000.
you did have expenses on that, so you.
Well, that would have been before,
We rectified that situation.
we
Correct,
rectified it in March.
okay.
Right.
All right, so as long as the
So-
board's comfortable,
okay.
I just wanna make sure that you.
Yeah, we will not be spending any money on organic wastes.
Okay, so you got it then. Okay, and then, page 6 of 6, you just got the, as I mentioned earlier, the street reconstruction, the principal went from 12.5 to 50,000, but that was done previously, so there was really no change there. That was a test one that I did to rearrange the bond anticipation notes, okay? So that's page 6 of 6.
What was that number, Ed?
It went to 50,000 from, it was originally 112,500, which, there's 3 years left on that ban.
Okay.
So now what you're effectively doing is you're increasing the 30,000 to pay over 6 years. And what you're really gonna do is when all of these bans come together and become a $1.8 million ban, you're gonna pay it all at one time every year in March. So you only have one closing to deal with, okay? All right, so again, your total there is 4,659,948, and that's reflected on page 1. Okay, water fund. Okay, you're on page 1 of the water fund. If you look at the revenues, I put the metered sales up in anticipation that the board is gonna take some action on water rates, okay? Now, is it possible that we will hit these metered sales numbers? Sure it is, especially if it's a hot summer or something like that, there's a lot of water usage, you could easily hit that. But there is an anticipation that there is gonna be a board action on the water rates, which is why I feel comfortable with this number. Okay, there is no fund balance in water. I'm hoping with increasing rates, we'll start to build a fund balance and then have a little bit of cushion, okay? One thing I did do though is on the water fund expenditures, your water fund expenditures went down. To some degree, you got help from the reapportionment of the bond anticipation notes. And you had some help from your lowering of your costs for purification, which went down almost $35,000. You did have, you'd still have that property tax piece if the school board,
Did they act on that?
they've got it on their agenda for the next meeting, but to be honest with you, they're kind of tiptoeing around, and I think they're waiting to see how much noise is gonna be made by it.
I think I'm gonna plan on going, I think other people really need to go, just to get, well, only because it was mentioned. Basically, the first meeting, and the president had thought that it was being it was not being not taxed because we make money on the water. And that's not the case. After talking to NICOM, talking to the county, it's the only reason that it has to be voted on by county and town and everyone else is because the land lies outside the village. If our water source was inside the village, it would be untaxed. So it has nothing to do with what, making money, losing money, the whole nine. Then we did go, the clerks investigated throughout the county and did find that the majority of the other towns and villages did
Give them the waiver.
give them the waiver. So that information is at the board level at this point. And I'm gonna go to the next meeting and just say, look, you know, I understand we're all on the spot, but this is what is being done by everyone. The only reason it's not being done is because it was never presented properly. And it should have been done 20 years ago. You know, it should be taken off. County and town does it
Well, the
every year.
county did take it out.
The county does it every year, so does the town. It's standard. It's not.
Yeah, they have an agreement, there's a written agreement. The one from the town is back from Inga Quinton's days, so. Okay? So what you see is because the water meters dropped off this year and your purification numbers went down, I pumped up your contingency to 115,000. Okay, now, what that's going to do is that it's going to allow you to have more funding, so you're not gonna have to borrow from the sewer fund to pay your payroll because of the way the collections happens. And then what I'm hopeful is that with increased rates, you'll start to build yourself a fund balance here. And then if you do choose later, you could actually accelerate some of your debt payments if the financial position looks better. Okay? So to have your expenses meet up with your actual revenues, you have a sizable contingency fund built in. Okay, now, I put that in, it's a recommendation, it certainly doesn't have to stay that way. I could certainly lower your metered sales number if you think that you're not gonna reach that, but I think it's a target you should go after.
What's the percentage?
I'm sorry?
What's the raise?
Up for
What's your
water?
recommended,
We have to, that's a whole other topic.
yeah.
No, that, I can't just pick that number out, that's gotta be,
Sorry.
something we discuss.
Good with that.
Yeah, because the rate per thousand, and then the initial cost.
Yeah, and then commercial versus,
Yeah.
yeah, commercial versus residential.
We talked about that.
You might wanna
yeah.
change the way that's set up, okay, so, do I feel comfortable that you'd be able to get the water rates reasonably strong to where this is doable easily? Yes, I do.
Okay.
But what it does is it gives you a very large contingency, and I'm comfortable with it, but I need you guys to be. And the sewer fund, I guess, will thank you, because then they won't have to borrow as much. Not that the sewer fund cares, they just don't get any interest for it. Okay, so that's your totals for, you have the interfund transfer for administrative, we talked about that, instead of it coming, in previous years, it was coming out of the water admin
Right.
line. And now that's been trimmed back and you're doing it out of your actual interfund transfer. Okay, now we're on page 1 of sewer fund revenues. Sewer fund, I made some adjustments here. One was to the contingency, because that's gonna need to be you're gonna need it after what's going on over there by Memorial Park. Okay, that increase in the contingency is probably enough to get you your first payment or two. But you might end up, when we turn the corner and have to turn the bands into one large band, you might have to up that band, depending on what the cost of replacing all those pipes is gonna turn out to be. But at least it gives you some initial upfront money, and if we have to take a ban earlier than that, which is quite possible, we'll just have that ban mature on the same date that the other bans are gonna mature, so they're all combined in March. So if you have to take a ban 3 months from now to pay for that, then we'll have it mature 6 months from the time that it's incepted.
Well, my hope is that the reason why it's collapsed is that along the wall there's nothing but vegetation, and where it kicks back into the park and where it crosses the street and goes down. I'm thinking if it's a place where it has issues, it'd be between Memorial Park and Aristote's property, so I'm hoping that right there is.
The vegetation actually
The roots,
infiltrated?
yeah, and they collapse the pipe, and they suck for water kind of into the hubs of the pipe, and they get obstruct flows and stuff like that. I'm hoping that it's as bad as it is, and it's probably as deep as it is. It's a bad spot as far as depth, but I'm hoping that it's just confined to that spot.
So it doesn't grow.
Yeah, so when they go in there, they line it or replace it, it's going to be resolved, and as far as dollars go, that'll be probably, hopefully, the biggest expense, I think.
Well, they're replacing the pipe there.
Yeah, but they talked about lining, I don't know
Other
how far.
The second piece,
Yeah.
the engineer actually came in and suggested they were planning on putting in one manhole. He suggested they put in two because it's turning. He said you never want to, they were actually doing this and then.
No, yeah,
He said you gotta put a manhole
you
in.
gotta make that turn at
So-
the manhole.
I saw a couple
The second-
manholes they dropped off.
Yeah, but they brought more because of his recommendation. But, because they only had the one plan. So after the second manhole is where they, as you said, after that is where it hits the street. And their feeling is that there's a very good chance that we won't have to replace anything at that point.
Just makes sense.
So
to
just
me.
line it.
Yeah,
That's their goal, so they're not giving us that answer until they finish putting in the pipe up to the manhole, because then they will camera it from there over and make sure that they have a clean
yeah.
area to line.
I didn't talk to Kevin, I put a call to Breyer, and I didn't hear back from him, but, I called him like today, I just still wanted to get.
They're still
most recent
not to
update.
the manhole, so.
No, I know, I saw the machinery where they're at, they're plugging along, it must be hard digging. it is what it is. It really,
Well, maybe the bright side of this is that the sewer fund's probably the best performing fund in the
if it was
village.
gonna happen, it should happen,
Oh,
sewer
yes.
rather than the water,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
So what I did is that because the original budget, was about 100,000 below, what was actual revenues from last year, and pretty much tracking for this year too, because this year's revenues were stronger than the 2012-13. What I did is I plussed up your contingency $70,000 from the original 30, with the anticipation that that money's probably gonna need to be moved over to at least pay your first installment here, when that comes due. And then depending on what the final bill is gonna be, it'll determine whether or not you're gonna have to bond for the remainder of that repair, okay? The metered sales number of 1,008,000 is definitely within the window of what your experience has been and what you're gonna have in the future. So, you're not going out on any limbs with that higher revenue request versus what you were originally budgeting for. Okay, it's probably a truer, what I was trying to do is build the fund balance even larger by keeping your expenses down and then letting the additional revenues go right to fund balance. But with this situation, you're probably gonna have to wait a little while before you can achieve that, okay? So we go to page 1 of 2 on expenditures, and as you see, you do have some benefit coming from the sewer plant salary line of about $28,000, and another $18,000 from the contractual, and $40,000 from the equipment line. That was all done through the budget, nothing really changed there, but you can see there's $70,000 right there in lower costs for even that line item, which is why your revenue versus expenditures were 100,000 below where they are now with those contingencies put in.
Nice.
Okay. So then we go to page 2 of 2, and on page 2, you've got your bands, and what I did was I changed the bands from 140 down to 80, so you're getting a $60,000 benefit in what your band payments are going to be. And the way it's going to work out is that each when the ban for your sewer improvements matures, it's going to be paid. We're going to pay $20,000. We're going to reissue it to mature next March, and next March it's going to get another $20,000, and that's going to be for both of them. And then your remainder of those bans are going to be compiled into one large ban, and that's where you're going to get that favorable interest rate, considering that the economy doesn't change dramatically if those rates change dramatically. It's not a lot out there saying that they will, but it is a risk you take. I think it's a low risk. No, I think your chances of having a better rate and a consolidated ban is worth the move to go that way. And the advisor that the village has for its serial bonds also believes it's a good move. Okay, so that's your budget. Give you guys a chance to look at it through the week, and I'll make the changes. So next week, if I don't hear anything else, what I'll do is I'll have a last version, but it's going to say adopted budget on it, but it won't be certified until you guys actually have had a chance to look at it, and I've had a chance to look at to be able to look at the fund balance, to see if there's anything I can do with the fund balance to help it one way or another. All right, okay? Any questions? Because we're pretty much
Very
at the
thorough.
end
Thank you.
point. Thanks, okay.
I have one. The taxable assessed valuation?
I'm sorry, did you
The
have?
taxable assessed valuation?
Yes, that's right.
Are we,
That's gonna change,
okay.
yes. One thing Gina's bringing up, but we're, I don't know if we're gonna see the second one that we got notice on, but the first one, which is the West Point Motel, that's going to be worked in. The total assessed valuation will go down I think if I remember right, it was around 800,000?
771.
Down?
771,000.
Yeah. 771K will go down.
Which one is it?
Okay, now again, that's not gonna affect your tax cap. It's gonna affect this rate. Okay, so with that, it's probably gonna pump that rate up another.
What's the
couple
difference?
cents.
You know what I mean?
Shouldn't we be looking at a bed tax for the village?
I think there was an effort to do it.
No,
If I remember right, I think that there was a,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, yes.
isn't there a, doesn't there need to
Hotel
be support?
occupancy
Doesn't it
tax.
need to, there need to be support, legislative support to do that though? I don't think the boards, I think it's state level.
I think that exists because it was raised previously and voted down
Yeah.
by the village. It might be time to revisit.
Yeah. So that's, you know, that's another topic you guys can talk about, but, yeah, so you can, the total assessed valuation will adjust at least down by that. I'm thinking that's where it is. So that's it. There's 2 executive session topics that we have to go into. One has to do with CERT, and the other has to do with, a, issue related to, I guess it's more legal.
Can I get a motion to move into executive session? Second? All's in favor? Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Good night.
Right.
That's